Hello and welcome to Tastyspleen TV. This is your friendly neighborhood Jahar, and today we're going to be looking at a fantastic game, Dark Souls, and some of my favorite things in that title. Now, if you're a usual viewer of our content, you may be wondering, this isn't Doom, this isn't Quake, what the hell? Well, it isn't. But there are things that Doom and Quake express through video games that set a very high standard for what we expect to see from the industry, what we expect to see from artists, what we expect to see from content creators. And Dark Souls hits many of those things in such a way that we haven't seen in years. And so, we're going to be going through several of those things. All of these things, of course, being very important to me personally. Your list may be very different. That's okay. We can't all be right. So let's hop right into number 10.
Number 10.
First up, we have Pillars. You probably weren't expecting that one, were you? Well, this one has a very, very close place to my heart because so much of Dark Souls kind of harkens back to some elements of roguelike gameplay. I'm not going to make a whole lot of those roguelike fans angry by saying that Dark Souls is a roguelike, but it has certain elements. And one of the biggest ones is Pillars, because back in the day, talking about things like Dungeon Crawl, Angband, Zangband, NetHack, all these things, it was very common to find a single tile that you could run around indefinitely while recharging health with an angry dragon or whatever chasing you behind, never being able to catch you because of the way the movement works. And then when you have enough health to hit him once and maybe trade a blow and survive, then you can do that. And there are certain parts of Dark Souls, for example, I don't have footage of this unfortunately, but the first time I encountered a butcher in the depths, I ran away like a little bitch, first of all, but then I came to a little hall with some pillars on it. I was thinking, well, this looks familiar, and I'm wondering if it was intentional because it wasn't just a pure exploitation of the engine, and between Rogue and between Dark Souls, yes, that's exactly what it is, but here it really clicked. It goes, this is something I could do, it's something I can exploit, yeah, but it's in my favor, and it just felt like a homecoming as far as game design goes. So, like it or not, number 10, I friggin' love the Pillars.
Number 9.
Alright guys, this next one is technically a graphical effect, and that's really not what I want to make the focus of this video, but this one is very important from a world building and immersion standpoint, and that's the depth of field effects used in Dark Souls. And this game does two things that really make it, stand apart. The first is, well, it just uses a normal depth of field blur for distant objects, but also it posterizes and lowers the color depth of further objects as well, which really gives it this sort of lo-fi painterly effect. And depending on what area you're in, it'll be doing that at different levels. So it really tends to blur the line between what you can expect to be just a backdrop, just a skybox, and what is actually game geometry. It's really just impressive looking up at a castle or looking across a valley at these just very blurred out sort of muddy colors, but realizing that it's really part of the game world and it's really real geometry, and it really leaves you guessing, where does the world actually end? And you get to find out in Dark Souls, it never actually really does, and that's amazing. So, number 9, the depth effects.
Number 8.
Coming in at number 8 is the optional boss, the Moonlight Butterfly. It has just been a long time since I've seen anything in a game just make me feel this particular mix of emotions. I come into the room, you hear the music, and it's awesome and haunting and beautiful, and then the thing flies up, and you're just awestruck for a moment. You don't even know that you're fighting it. Well, you know that you're fighting it, but you don't really want to, because look at the damn thing. It's gorgeous until it starts shooting lasers at you that pretty much end up destroying you if you're not careful. And even after killing it, I was like, wow, that was like a really beautiful creature. I didn't really need to kill that. I'm kind of an asshole. But, that's the way Dark Souls goes. But again, it's just worth mentioning because it's not very often that a game is able to make your jaw just drop and just stand still for a moment or two. Moonlight Butterfly, you're awesome, and I hope there's no hard feelings.
Number 7.
Next up, I'd like to take a look at the moment-to-moment swordplay and combat in Dark Souls, which is something that would have been so easy just to make merely mediocre and passable, but it has this wonderful tactile weighty feel to it with every swing of your sword, every swing of your hammer, and actually each weapon has its own unique, sort of weight and animation to it, so that, you'll never see a hammer appear on an animation frame where you don't expect it to, which is so important in PvP. You need to know what your opponent is capable of, when he's vulnerable, what you can expect his next attack to be, and the animation system with the combat provides all of that information in such a nice, deep level. And even, the smallest grunt enemy will have between 5 and 9 different attack sequences and animations. And so the combat is diverse, it's tactile, it's weighty, it feels great. Dark Souls nailed it.
Number 6.
Coming in at number 6 is just the atmosphere that this game brings to the table. Just the dark fantasy atmosphere that is really difficult to get well, especially if you want to take yourself seriously, especially if you want to take the players seriously. It's really difficult to bring this level of grit and no nonsense to a setting. And that atmosphere just bleeds through every moment of the game. In fact, there are some parts that just make you want to give up and forfeit and lose all hope and probably come back to the game later because you're a masochist. But just the fact that a game can suck your soul like that, that's an accomplishment by itself. And Dark Souls has absolutely provided that atmosphere that I've always wanted out of a game. I've always wanted to be able to inhabit the world of Conan the Barbarian. Not the Schwarzenegger Conan, but the old Robert E. Howard, badass Conan. And it's very difficult to get that particular mix of sword and sorcery right. And Dark Souls has nailed it on the head. I don't know if Conan means anything to the developers of Dark Souls, but if so, you guys have nailed it, and you deserve that compliment. Cheers, guys.
Number 5.
So, Dark Souls is an RPG. We all know that. There's equipment, there's stats, there's things to min-max. That's fantastic. That's what we've all come to expect from the genre. What's more rare and wonderful when we do finally get it, however, is the fact that this is as much about the player's journey and experience in the world as presented to them. The monsters are going to get easier, and sure, sometimes that's about the numbers above their heads as you whack them with your stick, get bigger. That's great. What's even better, though, is the fact that you understand their behaviors more. You understand how they work more. You know their positioning more. You know all that stuff. So yeah, there's stats. There's plenty of numbers to tweak away at your heart's content. But what's more interesting to me is the fact that you're never going to see a ring of strength +2. Most of these things deal not with the numbers, but with the behaviors. The fact that there's a ring of fog that makes you invisible, and thus you have to get closer to enemies before they detect you. A ring of sacrifice, which makes sure that you don't lose anything when you die, but the ring will break, so you need to go find a new one. And guess what? There's a limited amount of them in the world. You can't just buy an infinite amount of them. And that is so fantastic. The fact that there's an enemy that will spit poisonous fumes at you when you kill it, but if you use a flaming weapon, you'll cauterize it, and that won't happen. Everything is more about the behaviors than it is about the numbers, and that's something so basic that I wish more games in the genre presented correctly.
Number 4.
Coming in at number 4 is another element that serves to add to Dark Souls' world building and atmosphere. The fact that everything you do has consequences. Most games will gate you and keep things safe by making sure that, no, you can't kill Bill the shopkeeper, or if you do, he's got an insane amount of health points. Here, the NPCs are just as fragile as you are, and it doesn't matter if they're a blacksmith, it doesn't matter if they're a spell merchant, it doesn't matter if they're holding the key to one of the most important plot devices in the game. They're killable, and you can befriend them, you can talk to them, you can go up and kill them and get their stuff, and as a player, you're honestly faced with these choices of, what do I value more? Do I value having them as an ally? Or do I value their loot more? And here's the thing, they never come back. If you kill someone, they're dead. And coming up in this clip, which I had to pull from someone else because I already killed this guy, I saw this creepy bastard sitting on the roof, just standing there with these creepy red robes. I thought, okay, he's some sort of mage, magician, evil sorcerer or something, so I got on my sneakiest gear, snuck up to him, and stabbed him in the back. Turns out, he was the last surviving member of a group of people who were looking to defend an ancient monument. Well, not monument, but this ancient gate to keep this unspeakable evil out. And I just walked up and ganked him in the back. I felt like a douchebag, almost as much as I did when I had to kill the Moonlight Butterfly. But this was something, you know, the game didn't tell me, hey, this guy might be important later on, so don't kill him. No, it just presented him. He's a guy in the world. What are you gonna do? It left it up to me to decide. I feel like I made the wrong decision, and now I have to live with that. He's dead forever in the game. When I start the next one, maybe I'll do something different. But the fact that he's dead now has very real consequences in my game. And that, you know, lack of hand-holding and the game treating me like an adult who has to deal with stuff as it comes, that's awesome.
Number 3.
So guys, I'll admit, I pushed out for this next one. I didn't end up actually taking any footage related to it because I was afraid of dying and losing my crap, which was actually what I wanted to talk about. So you should be meta appreciating the fact that I pushed out, I guess. Anyway, when you die in Dark Souls, you drop all of your current crap on the ground where you died on this nice little bloodstain. And when you respawn, you have the opportunity to go back and get it. But here's the thing, you probably died where you died because something killed you and it's still there. And so you have to make sure that you don't die again, because if you do, in the process of trying to get back and get your crap, you lose that crap forever. And that can be scary. And it's a very real consequence for a player to have to deal with. And a lot of people like to go on about this being, you know, extra difficulty, extra challenge, punishing, unfair, yada, yada, yada. But in my mind, there's something much deeper there. There's the fact that you're creating real goals for the player that aren't related to the quest line. It's not a checkpoint on an objective list. It's something that the player wants to do and may create an entire web of events just to make sure that he succeeds it. Maybe he needs a weapon, you know, specifically to deal with this monster just so he could be extra safe. Maybe he needs some extra rings of sacrifice, so he needs to go find out where to get them. Maybe he wants to stockpile up on some humanity first, and so he needs to go get some of that. So you have all these things that the player is doing to do something completely unrelated to the main plot of the game, and that is awesome.
Number 2.
So, for lack of a better phrase, I'm going to call this next one looping levels. It's the fact that when you're first playing the game and you're in the Undead Parish, you get to a room, clear out the baddies, and you see what looks like an elevator. And you're going down the elevator, you know, you're checking your equipment, you're making sure that you're set for whatever the next impossibly insane difficult boss is going to be, because undoubtedly this is leading to something epic. But what happens instead is that you come out on this courtyard, you step out from the elevator, and you realize you're right back where you started. And now you have the shortcut to go from where you started to at the end of this entire chain of the map. And the game is full of that. It's not just the one time, it does it again and again and again, and not always with an elevator, but sometimes with a door, sometimes with a one-way gate. And it is constantly collapsing you back to some place you've seen before. And not is it only good for a time-saving maneuver so that you're not running all over the place and going through the same content again and again and again, but it builds this tactile feel for the level in the player's mind. He's developing a mental map, and just the feeling of familiarity when you come back and you recognize the place from maybe a different angle, a new mode of entering it. It is just awesome, and it makes the game so much more real, so much more tangible to the player. So Dark Souls, again, you have brought world building up a notch.
Number 1.
Alright, here we are at the top of the list, the big number 1, and if you've been noticing so far, I've been trying to build a bit of a theme as far as the world building and immersiveness of Dark Souls, the way it brings you in and doesn't let go. And for once, the fact that you're playing with other people doesn't ruin that experience. It's a single-player game, but you can invade the world of other players, and they can be brought into yours. They can invade you under certain conditions, or be brought in for jolly cooperation. And it's not a lobby. It's not, you know, a server browser. It is a pervasive world that you can, you know, jump the dimensions at any time within certain conditions and become part of someone else's world. And that is just so amazing. You could be there as a friend or a foe. You can scrawl messages on the ground, you know, begging for help from somebody, pointing out a useful item ahead, pointing out a dangerous trap ahead, all of those things. And even the player versus player mechanics aren't just simple you versus you, go on with it. There are in-game covenants with their own lore and backstories in history, with their own honor systems or lack of honor systems. There's the concept of sin in a game if you just go and recklessly kill other people, and there's a covenant just for bounty hunting those who have a price on their heads because of that sin. And that is just so amazing. You have PvP roles. As a forest hunter, I'm destroying those who invade my territory. There's no honor. It might be a 2-on-1 battle against my opponent. I might be bringing them into the trees to lure them into a trap or into other enemies. Fine, I'm a forest hunter. I'm going to take them down. I'm not a dueler. I'm not an honorary knight. It's just the way that covenant works. And even within the covenants, there's all sorts of different things. So for once, the multiplayer just really adds to everything there. So guys, I would like to thank you for joining me with this bit of a pointed retrospective on Dark Souls and what it brings to the table, and my hopes that there's going to be a lot more like that in the future, just because this game and from software developers are so unique in their vision and their execution of bringing these sort of worlds to life. And this is the stuff that I live for. It's something that we see in Doom, it's something that we see in Quake, and for once in the RPG genre, we get to see it here as well.